What is something that rich people do that really annoys you? My rich friend orders 20 things from McDonald's and eats 2 of them. Throws the rest away. I'm not exaggerating. She is infinitely kind and generous, but that kind of waste makes me shake my head. A friend of mine spent most of his life poor but finally had his big break and got hired on as a substance abuse psychologist for this big name inpatient rehab center that celebrities frequent. Think Britney Spears level celeb. And all of a sudden, the guy never reuses socks. Socks are now single-use items for him, and he buys them by the hundreds. I seem to recall someone bought a pair of socks for every day of the year and, fairly quickly, developed a nasty rash due to the chemicals the socks are treated with. They wash off with reuse and don't cause problems, but if you're constantly wearing new ones they can do some real damage. Cannot seem to find a source on that, however, so take it with a grain of salt. Well, for him that is obviously a sign that he has made it. Maybe he had one pair of socks that he had to hand wash and hang to dry and wore them until they were threadbare. Sounds like a pretty harmless thing if so. I know someone who owns a multi-million-dollar company. He tells his employees he grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. He grew up in a very wealthy suburb of a large city and his father was an orthopedic surgeon. I know of a person like that. Just opened his own brewery. Plays it like nobody gave me a chance, man. His key investor is his father, who runs an oil company. But I mean, I'm sure it was a small investment or loan, maybe like $1 million or something trivial. Ike. Reminds me of that one local rapper we have in our city, always rapping about the streets and whatnot. In reality, the part of town he's from is one of maybe 3 wealthy ones here. There are plenty of ghettos here, but he's from a place with literal mansions. Why not? Just rap about that? Just leave out the poor part and rap about cool cars or something. You can absolutely rap about things that aren't necessarily poor. In Poland there's a popular wealthy rapper who caused controversy by rapping about the fact that all the rich and influential people's children were all degenerates and addicts, really pissed off the ruling party, which is always fun. Of course he also faced early backlash from people who would say he shouldn't be in the genre if he hasn't experienced poverty like most of the other artists, but the established names were quick to shut that down. Sounds like Gavin Newsom. Always whining about how hard it was to be raised by a single mother. While failing to mention his father was general counsel of Getty Oil. I'm sure poor mom's alimony and child support was enough to keep him in skis and lift fees. Try to be relatable to regular people on social media. Like, remember when celebrities were struggling just as much as everyone during COVID in their multi-million-dollar homes? Yeah, they can fuck themselves. More like a sinking cruise ship, and we've all been locked in our cabins. Except I'm all the way down below, crowded in with a bunch of other people, locked into steerage, and they're 40 decks above me with a helicopter pad attached to their cabin. Not to worry though, we're all in the same boat. Or we all have the same 24 hours. If I take the subway and you drive, if I have to make dinner for my family after work and you have a chef do it, if you can just get your assistant to do something for you, we don't have the same 24 hours. My mom works for billionaires and millionaires. One millionaire couple is planning on moving states next year. I've been to their house and seen all that my mom does for them. It's everything. Laundry, pays bills, all cleaning, refilling their medication prescriptions, house maintenance, just everything. The fish in their saltwater aquarium died when my mom left for 2 weeks because they didn't feed it. They're very same 24 hours kind of people, and generally have horrible taste, but that's another of the 100 stories I could say about these people, lol. But oh my god, I wish I could be a fly on the wall when they move. They will sink. They'll live in squalor in their hideous mansion and not know how they got there. Lol, drive, they get driven. If they drive they have to focus on the road, and can't do other things during that time. Someone on the subway can do other stuff while they ride. But if you are driven by someone else, you get both a shorter amount of time to get there, and don't have to focus on driving. I would never work for someone else. That's why I pulled myself up by the bootstraps and started my own business. Conveniently forgets to mention the small $6 million loan from their parents, and the exclusive business contacts and networking they got thanks to their uncle. Went to a financial talk at our church. We were newly married and wanted to make sure we were on track. The advice? Move into your parents' house and save for at least 3 to 5 years. You should be set from there. Oh really? None of our parents had homes we could share, and I'm pretty sure none of them volunteered to have us come home. Found out afterward both parts of the couple giving the advice were trust fund kids. Literally handed houses / down payments after saving by living with them. Moth. Yes. I knew this girl who had all her bills paid plus a few thousand a month allowance from her parents. She couldn't understand why her friends, like me, couldn't afford a brand new car, fancy clothes, go out to dinner every night, or why we took the bus. In her eyes she was poor, and all poor parents do that for their kids. I have an uncle who was born super wealthy, but his older brothers mismanaged their dad's business after he died and it went under. Always lived above his means and was unable to stop when the money stopped coming in. He's been broke for almost a decade and still acts like he is better than everyone else. My relatives are fairly well off. I don't know what it is about them, but they have a notorious habit of bossing people around. My aunt, who I am very close with, straight up told me to go out and start a walking dogs business out of nowhere, and that when she sees me again, I better have a walking dog business. What? This is the way they function, and when you stand up to them you get told you're lazy, don't care, etc. Just for clarity, I'm looking for work. Her method wouldn't work for where I live. It's nowhere near practical. Even if it was, it's extremely bossy. I have well-off parents. I am physically disabled and require very specific accommodations to work. My stepmother harps on about just start your own business, walk dogs, become a personal chef, open up a food truck. Why don't you have your own tutoring company? I just want to smack her. Like, even if I weren't disabled, you can't just start those businesses and instantly make money. You need to build up contacts, a client base, get more certifications, advertise. Even if I was selling something lots of people wanted, like drugs, you don't just hang out your shingle and start making money. Exactly, starting a business takes capital. My wife had a photography business before we had our kid, and she had a steady stream of clients paying a good amount, but even for a business without a physical location, the license fees and cost of photography equipment upgrades meant she was often barely turning a profit. That plus the oversaturation of photography in our area is why she decided to shutter the business when she got pregnant. Assume they deserve and earned everything they have, and that consequently, poor people just aren't working hard enough. Even if a person legitimately built their own wealth and jumped socioeconomic status on their own, they're still engaging in survivor bias. Lots of poor people work very hard and take on a lot of misery in service of a better life. And a lot of those people stay poor forever and never get their break. This bothers me more than anything else about rich people. Recently I've become acquainted with a friend's new billionaire boyfriend. She's also grown up rich, and you would not believe the lengths he goes to explain away how he came to run a hedge fund and own hundreds of acres of land in cattle country. He has completely unbelievable stories about how he was just trusted with the management of money for incredibly rich families in his 20s, and then built on his successful performance there to create private funds he supposedly runs. All while also running a cattle ranch and taking 6-month surfing vacations to obscure destination and frequent yacht trips. I see this so often where I live, and given my involvement in the commercial real estate world. So many landlords and developers building on their inherited wealth, but coming up with stories about how they had to rough it to get where they are. I know another guy who has built up a couple successful businesses and owns a racing team, absurd wealth, but refuses to ever mention where all that money came from when bragging about what he's built on his own. It's just silly to be so boastful about your earnings when you were granted a top-of-the-line education and a few $1 million to get started with. I'd have so much more respect for them if they said, I inherited a bunch and I've done a good job managing it, rather than trying to appear self-made. TBH, a lot of old money can be more likable and nice people than new money. The old money people seem to know the privilege more than people who have done anything for wealth, who seem to be brash about it as it has defined them. People like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, through tax write-offs, pay virtually no taxes to the government, yet having literally the most money in the world, yet leave the working classes to pay the tab for everything the government wants. Consume so much, and do things like travel via air, own huge yachts, waste things, and in general wreck our environment without seeming to care or make an effort to reduce the damage they are doing personally or to tackle the problem in any way. I work with some very wealthy people, and the amount of traveling and buying stuff and filling their yachts with fossil fuels is depressing to me. This is what's so depressing to me. I can be zero waste and deprive myself of convenience for my entire life, with my entire family, yet that difference is negligible to how much waste a single rich person can produce in a single day of partying. Oh, even semi-wealthy people are the worst at waste. Literally doing several loads of laundry per day and loading up 2 dishwashers a day, or having someone else do it. Who am I kidding? They can't seem to figure out why most people can't just decide to be rich and successful. I mean, yes, there is something to be said about having the drive and motor to get where you are, but if it was that easy, we'd all be billionaires. It's like gambling, sometimes the cards favor you, but mostly the house wins. From my sister, who was a tutor/nanny for a period of time. Horrifically bitchy and abusive trophy wives. This got bad enough that she would turn down work from the second wives club. Chronically ill and under the weather first wives who lay in bed all day, and had a host of first world problems. A broad assumption that you work for them, therefore they own you. The other point I hear of was her being hit, bumped, on 3 different occasions by people in Mercedes who, rather than getting out and making sure everything was okay, would pull alongside, laugh and wave through the window like silly me. And then just drive off. Really rich people? I'm sure. But millionaires? A bunch. Funny thing is that I met a few people that on paper are worth tens of millions. I mean owning big companies. Some are nice, some are just businessmen. But those who have tens of millions as pocket money are rare. You usually don't notice them as standing out. They usually are the men and women enjoying a gin tonic at the golf club. Not flashy or loud. Just relaxed nice people. Yeah, that's exactly my point. In my experience, people that are worth a couple $100,000 to single-digit millions are pretty hit or miss, but truly wealthy people tend to be pretty cool in my experience. There is definitely a ceiling though where it starts to trend back to asshole in the mid-millions in my experience. People that truly earned their money usually don't feel the need to rub it in other people's face. It's the people that are well off but not wealthy that are trying to convince people they are wealthy tend to be the worst in my opinion.